welcome to Unit 3.6a. We are studying social emotional development today. Here are your learning objectives. Here's your vocab. So when we talk about social emotional development, we're going to be talking about all sorts of different layers of environmental factors that can influence how we develop through these important stages in early childhood, particularly. So one term for this is ecological systems theory. And this is the idea that there's all these different systems. You have those who are in immediate direct contact with the baby or child, the microsystem. You have the connections between those groups, the connections between like parents and peers or parents in school. You have the external environment that can influence a person. You have cultural influences that are going to affect the way a baby's raised and how the outcomes for that child. And you have just the life stages and the historical events that are happening outside of all of those systems. And all of those things affect child development and social emotional attachment. So what is attachment? This is the emotional tie with another person, and it's shown in young children when they seek closeness to their caregiver. If they experience stranger anxiety, right? This is the fear of strangers. Again, this is around 8 months. This is another way to show attachment to caregiver. So the Harlows were studying learning using monkeys, and they noticed that these monkeys were attaching to these cheesecloth blankets. And when they went to get washed, they would get really sad about it and upset and anxious. And so they were trying to challenge Freud's idea that babies attach to their mothers because mothers provide food. So they set up a system where this fake monkey is their only mother. These babies were raised without real mothers, so this is considered an unethical study, and it has received a lot of criticism for it. And when they wanted to do the experiment and test the two things out, they would have the cloth monkey only, right? And then they would separate out, like traditionally, before the cloth and the food were together to form the attachment. And then they would separate cloth on one side, food on the other. Which does the baby cling to? Who is the baby attached to? And for 2 hours of 24, the baby was with the food wire monkey, but for 22 out of 24 hours, the baby monkey was with the cloth mother, showing that it was the contact, the warm, soft connection to mother that provided that feeling of safety. We can also see early on in development of other organisms, such as geese, a critical period. A critical period is when something has to happen, the window closes, it can't happen after, of imprinting with geese. So this is a strong and immediate attachment to the first caregiver that they see. So Conrad Lorenz here had these geese attached to him. So he had to do the teaching of how to teach geese, how to do geese things. In imprinting, they will follow the mother goose everywhere, and they will learn from the mother goose. Another study on attachment is the Mary Ainsworth Strange Situation Test. This is like it looks like kind of like a waiting room. Mother, because it was 1979, as caregiver would come in with child. They would play with the toys. Mom would leave, as mom does. This is not an unethical study. Mom goes to the grocery store. Mom goes to the bathroom. Mom goes to work. These are not unethical things, right? So the mom leaves the room for about a minute, returns. Okay, so the baby crying when the mom leaves is not what they are studying in the Strange Situation Test. They are studying how does the baby react when mom returns. And what they saw was babies are either securely attached or insecurely attached. What does that look like? A securely attached baby would return to the mom and be like, I was upset. I want a hug. I'm okay now. Let's go check out these toys again. Okay, securely attached. They know mom's gone, but mom comes back and now everything's okay. I can move on. Insecurely attached cannot get over that mom left. They either anticipate that's going to happen a lot more. They don't know what to expect, or they're not going to get that connection, that bond feeling when mom comes back. And so they're either insecure, anxious, where they continue to cry, or they're insecure, avoidant, where they're showing maybe indifference to the fact that mom returned, or ignoring mom, like won't make eye contact with mom. That would be an insecure baby. Secure babies have this feeling of trust in the world. I can rely on people, and this leads to ultimately better outcomes. Like I said, there was a lot of criticism of some of these attachment studies, such as Harlow. So you can read these quotes that I thought were kind of interesting, that Harlow gives here in defense of his study and the hope that he has to better child development for human children. And then Harlow's biographer here. And here's a little note about the Harlow monkeys, who did continue to struggle into adulthood because of the unethical way they were raised without a real monkey mom. Okay, so let's look at temperament. So temperament is something that tends to be stable throughout our life. When we talk about like stable or changing, temperament is something that tends to be genetic and it tends to be stable. And this is your emotional reactivity and intensity. And this is highly genetic. When we see babies who have a high reactivity, we tend to see adults. You know, if you're a highly reactive baby, you're a highly reactive adult. And there have also been a lot of studies on the role that positive parenting interventions can have on highly reactive, emotionally reactive babies. So while temperament is genetic, while emotional reactivity is going to happen just based on genetics, how you are raised, the nurture part, can have an important role in helping that highly reactive baby learn how to regulate their emotions. So getting more into parenting, and that nature-nurture thing. In one study, there was 100 temperamentally difficult 6 to 9 month-year-olds, and they were put either in an experimental group where the parent received the sensitive responding training, or a control group. And at 12 months, 68% of the experimental group were securely attached. So again, that's showing that nurture can play an important role. And a lot of this has been focused on mothers, because a lot of this data, a lot of these studies were done at a time where the focus was on mothers as caregivers, but there has been more research towards fatherhood. So for example, in this British study, fathers who are more involved in parenting achieve more in school, even after controlling for other factors such as parents' education, family wealth. And here is some more facts from our textbook about just the positive role that two parents can have. These aren't things that you need to memorize and write down, but I thought they might be interesting for you to take a look at. Okay, so here's something you do need to write down. So we're going to be studying in a future module Erik Erikson's psychosocial stages. And because we're studying infants here and attachment, it's important to note that in the first stage of psychosocial development is developing basic trust, that the world is a trusting place, and that I know that if I need something, my needs are going to be met. If the baby needs a diaper change, the diaper is going to be changed. If they're cold, someone's going to help them get warm. If they're tired, someone's going to help them fall asleep. If they're hungry, someone's going to feed them. This responsive parenting style is going to help, and this It's going to help that attachment style. It's also going to help them form this secure base so that they can go off and explore the world and feel safe in doing so. So let's take a moment and talk about adverse childhood experiences and how those can impact this attachment and secure base development. So there was an unfortunate historical moment where the communist dictator of Romania set into place all sorts of changes to the laws to really punish people if they didn't have at least 5 children. And even though the economy and the families could not support these people, these babies. So a lot of babies ended up in orphanages in Romania in the 1980s. And the ratio of caregivers to babies was 15-1. So it makes it really hard for them to develop that secure attachment. It makes it really hard for them to develop that sense of basic trust. And what they noticed was before these babies went off to foster care, there was lower intelligence scores, abnormal stress responses, and quadruple the rate of ADHD in these babies compared to typical rates. But there are numerous studies that show that, and this is when they went, right? So when they're leaving foster, when the ratio is 15-1, when they're leaving the orphanage and going to a foster. So we have a plethora of studies that show, and cross-culturally, that when these babies are placed in supportive and healthy environments, when they're placed in good foster care, that these negative impacts, they're going to be able to bounce back from them. Humans are much more resilient than we give ourselves credit for. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I thought these might be interesting and kind of helpful to understand, to get the bigger picture. I would not write all these down. But just generally to know that we are resilient. And in fact, hardship, not necessarily trauma, but hardship actually has shown, and trauma has shown this too, but generally speaking, any adversity, any hardship actually improves mental toughness, improves one's ability to overcome other life challenges in their future. Something also of note is that when we look at parents who abuse or people who are convicted of murder, we see that there is a link there that they were neglected and abused in childhood. But important to note, most abused people do not become abusers. So there's just a whole list of a bunch of other outcomes here that can happen with adverse childhood experiences. And they really just increase your risk. But there's, again, this nature-nurture thing. There is the nature of maybe you have a particular gene that increases your stress hormone response, and then you're put in an environment that's neglectful or abusive, and it's just going to increase your risk for things like depression. So back to overall studying social emotional development. Part of what's going on at this time too is you're developing your sense of self. Who am I? Your self-concept. And we've mentioned self-esteem before. This is figuring out your self-worth, right? And so Charles Darwin actually said about this time period that they're developing their self-awareness, and that he said that this occurs when they can recognize themselves in a mirror. And there's something called the red dot test, where you put a red dot on their nose, put them in front of a mirror, and at 8 months, 10 months, they probably won't really notice. They might touch the nose on the mirror. They might touch the mirror thinking it's a different child. This can go back to our cognitive stages. But by 15 to 18 months, they're like, hey, there's something on my nose. So they have developed a schema of their self and what to expect, and they don't expect that red dot. Okay, last thing, parenting styles. These are important to know. So there is the authoritative, these are vocab words. Authoritative parent is, you want to remember two things. They are supportive and demanding. The authoritative parent is the most research-backed, best supported in terms of successful outcomes as adults. There's an asterisk to that though, okay? So authoritative are supportive, highly supportive, and demanding. Authoritarian are not supportive and highly demanding. Permissive parenting is not demanding, but highly supportive. And then you have the neglectful parent who is neither supportive or placing any demands. So what do I mean by demands? I mean like placing rules, by placing boundaries. You will be home at 10. Okay. Authoritarian parent might say, you're going to be home at 10. Oh, but mom, dad, there's this thing and can I get 10:30 just for tonight, whatever, right? Authoritarian parent isn't going to want to hear the story, isn't going to be supportive, isn't going to kind of comfort you. Oh, I know this is hard. You do have to follow this rule. I understand it's really hard to be a teenager. They're not going to give you a lot of that, okay? So that's like the unsupportive part, but the high expectation. Authoritative is going to look like, yes, that's the curfew. I understand you want to stay out till 10:30 today. It really doesn't matter what the answer is, like the yes, no. It's more the explanation. The authoritative parent is going to empathize with you more, is going to listen to you more, is going to set that clear boundary and expectation, but you're going to get that more warm, supportive response from them. And the permissive parent is like the mean girl's mom, like, I'm not a regular mom, I'm a cool mom, right? She's supportive, like, do whatever you want, like, oh, you want to go out? Sure, of course, like, go out. So they're super supportive, but they're not putting in those high expectations, right? Like, you can't take the car out because you failed that math test. You got to stay home and study because you have a makeup tomorrow. Here's some more information about the parenting styles. The key here to take away from this graphic, again, don't write all these things down, but the key here to take away is that authoritative is the one that has the best outcomes, the highest self-esteem, highest self-reliance, self-regulation, and helpfulness as their outcomes. But as this middle part says, you have to be really careful. Correlation isn't causation. Just because they were raised by parents who are authoritative doesn't mean that we know that's the cause of why they have higher self-esteem, self-reliance, etc. And there could be all these other third variables, but I also want to point out that different kids might need different responses. There might be different parenting styles done by one parent or another parent in the same household, or to different children in the household. There's also cultural differences in that some cultures may be more authoritarian, and that's more conducive to the outcome that they're looking for. So, for example, like westernized cultures, they value independence, and that might make a child who in some ways is more avoidantly attached as an outcome. Many Asian and African cultures value physical and emotional closeness, maybe carrying their babies on their backs throughout most of the day. So there's all these different ways, and there's plenty of examples on this page here. But the point is to not presume that your culture has the only and best way to raise a child successfully. So takeaways, remember Harlow, the monkeys preferred the contact, some animals imprint like geese. We do not. We want a secure base so we can develop basic trust in the world. The strange situation test, we want to become securely attached where we know the parent is going to come back and we can explore the room safely. Self-concept, who am I? Remember that through all of the challenges that someone might experience in early childhood, traumas, neglect, abuse, that overwhelmingly research shows that we are resilient. We can overcome. And in many areas, we also show a developed, increased sense of mental toughness. And while authoritative is overall the most successful in terms of outcomes, that's a correlation, not a causation. So that sums up Mod 3.6a, and I will see you in class.